Does tithing have a place in Christian giving today? I'm Tim Greenwood, and this is Windows on the Word. In the eyes of many, tithing and giving are synonymous. There are some that have no idea what a tithe even is. But to others, the word tithe is synonymous with some kind of religious bondage. First, let me state that I believe that the Old Covenant Mosaic Law mandatory requirement to tithe, on pain of being under the curse, it no longer applies to New Covenant Christians. However, there's still valid applications to the tithe, the tenth, for today's Christian giving. No, I'm not writing this to cause anybody to fear or feel guilty or feel shame. God's not looking on your past mistakes. He just wants you to do the right thing, starting at the moment you know what the right thing is to do. Fear and guilt and shame are all tools of the devil, which I refuse to receive, and I certainly refuse to use it. Now, if you're not currently tithing or otherwise supporting the church and Christian ministries because you didn't know you should, or if you don't have control over your family income, understand this: you're only responsible for what you do know and what you do have control over. My main purpose for this video is due to recent deceptive anti-tithing teachings, which on the surface all sound pretty good as long as you want to skip over the books of Hebrews and Corinthians and what they had to say on this subject. My favorite quote so far from these anti-tithing teachings was as follows: "A new covenant child of the Lord comes to embrace a deep desire to give into the work of the kingdom over time as God pours His blessings so full that they just begin to overflow." And doesn't that sound nice? Doesn't that sound wonderful? Poetic, perhaps even idealistic, if it wasn't for the fact that most Christians, over 94% of them, are not even giving anywhere close to 10% of their income to ministries or churches. That means that less than 6% of all Christians do tithe, and many of those give way less than 10%. And when I say tithe, that includes all giving to churches and Christian ministries, whether you call it tithing, sowing, giving, or whatever you want to call it. Therefore, I can only conclude that this automatic, deep desire to give to the work of the kingdom is not nearly deep enough to get the job done. Do you know what I believe? I believe that if every Christian were to give a full tithe, 10% of his or her incomes for just 3 years in a row, that's every Christian, that these funds would be sufficient to fully fund the gospel being preached to every single person on this planet before that money ran out. Now, what I just said is really huge. You ought to think about that. Tithing or giving, the tenth, in the New Testament is only mentioned in a few places. In Matthew 23:23, Luke 11:42, and Luke 18:12, Jesus talks about the Pharisees and how they tithed of everything, including 10% of even their cooking spices, but didn't walk in love. Jesus said that it was right for them to tithe, but that their tithing meant nothing without that love. But until Jesus was killed, raised from the dead, and was appointed as our high priest, the old covenant was still active and in place. So, even though Jesus said in those scriptures that tithing was a good thing, that it shouldn't be left undone, and that it even implies that Jesus himself was a tither, I guess I'd have to allow that these references to tithings were still made under the Old Covenant. Therefore, in part 2, we're going to see what Paul had to say about Christian giving in the New Covenant. Hey, thanks for joining us for this video. We can stay connected if you subscribe. You can be notified when the next Windows on the Word video is released. So just click on the subscribe link. click on the like button and click on the notify bell here on the screen. And please, share this video with others.